on April 6th of 1998, you were actually a part of wrestling history, where you were actually a part of the very first intergender wrestling match in the World Wrestling Federation, where you squared off against Luna on an episode of Monday Night Raw. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us the story behind this match, and of course, just working with Luna on this particular episode of Raw.
Yeah, I'd been looking to get booked as an extra. You know, I didn't really have any contacts there. Somehow I found out that it was Howard Finkel you had to speak to about that, believe it or not. So I would call him on the phone, and I was such a shy kid, and I'd have to get up the nerve to call him. It's almost like when you're in high school and you're going to get up the nerve to call a pretty girl, and you got to dial 7 numbers, and you dial 6, and you hang up, and you say, okay, I'm going to do a little, that was me calling Howard Finkel. He was the pretty girl in this situation. So I finally got him on the phone, and he said, send us, I don't even think, I'm sure I sent the WWF tapes a million times in my life, but I don't even think you want to see a tape, just a resume and a picture, and I did. And then I called and followed up and called and followed up and called and followed up. And he probably got quite sick of it. In fact, when he called to book me, I wasn't home. And for a long time, I had the old answering machine tape. I wish I still did. But he said, Matt, I think we can put you to work on whatever date you just said in Syracuse. And he finished it with, and thank you for your persistence, because I'd call him every week, So I showed up there, and again, you got to understand, I'm a small town guy. You were in Savona for Flex Wrestling. You saw the size of that town, right?
Yeah.
So everything I'm doing alone, and I'm doing for the first time. And so you really have to make yourself do these things, and it's scary. So I drive to a WWF show alone. Didn't know a soul there, or didn't think I would. Turns out I knew one of the other extras, and walked in the door and found Tony Garea and checked in, and it was I guess I'd been there. I think it was probably the second time I was there. I was there the day before, the night X-Pac came back, the day after WrestleMania 14. So this was the Tuesday it was taped, and initially they didn't have anything for me. So, but you dress anyway because you're going to be ready. And I'm standing around the monitor with Steve Austin and Mark Henry and Kane. He hadn't been around that long, and it just blew my mind to see him talking behind the mask. You know what I mean? At that time, obviously he would, right? But just cracking jokes behind the mask, and I'm just this kid, however many years in the business, we said, not very many, 3 years in. And over comes Tony Garea while I'm standing there, and he's kind of smiling as he's walking towards me. He goes, "You're going to work with Luna." I'm like, wow, okay. And it was real simple. Goldust was there, and he beat me up before the match, and then she came in, and 20 seconds bell to bell, smacked me across the face, monkey flipped me. She was supposed to give me a splash off the top, but she set me too far away, or told me to go too far away, so it ended up being a headbutt in the nuts, which was actually better because it's a first ever, woman taking on a man on national television ever. And so dangerously low, Jim Ross called it on the call, right? And she pinned me 1, 2, 3. We got to the back, and she goes, "How is your pee-pee?" It was fantastic, and but that was it was a different time too. It was very cool. I would have never said. I was so honored to do it, and I sat there in the back saying, "Holy shit! I can't believe I just worked for the WWF. I can't believe it. I can't believe it." And of course, it airs the following week, and then everybody calls the house, and some old wrestling veterans who I won't name because they'll probably see this, but some guys that had been on television that I'd met already that I worked with a lot. You should have told them you were sick. You shouldn't have done that, blah, 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 because I lost to a girl, right? Big deal. She's tougher than me, and Dustin Runnels beat me up beforehand. So I think it would I think I'm safe. But yeah, it was quite an experience.
And did you have any idea in that current moment that you were actually making wrestling history? Because I mean, the World Wrestling Federation, even at that time, they were going head to head with the WCW. The Monday Night Wars were completely taking over primetime television. Did you have any idea that you were actually a part of wrestling history? Because I mean, man, like you were the very first guy in the WWF to wrestle a woman.
Yeah, no idea. The next week I was home and I watched the broadcast, and they said something about that, that it was the first time in history. I'm saying, wow. And then, of course, as you find out that that's not just hyperbole, not just hype, it really was, and it's something that, all these years later still gets brought up. And it's quite an honor, especially, in recent times when intergender match is, for better or for worse, whatever you think of that, or kind of commonplace. I literally was the first one to ever do it. And that's not, I'd love to, it's a great little thing on the resume for me, and it's a cool story, but it had very little to do with any skill I had. It was just right place at the right time. You know what I mean? I was very, very lucky. I found myself lucky a lot in my career. But no, I had no idea. I will say, must be the powers that be thought it went well and thought it was a big deal, because when it aired, excuse me, it aired out of order. So it wasn't, as I recall, I think it aired in the second hour. I'm not going to swear to that, but it aired later than it actually happened during the tapings. So you know what I'm saying? So they edited it to go on later, and the commentators kept talking about it to draw a rating out of it, to make sure you tune in later when Luna wrestles a man. Make sure you tune in later when Luna wrestles a man. So I'm like, holy cow! I guess it's a big deal.